Today we'll be learning how to multiply fractions by fractions. Please copy down the standard benchmark indicator on a clean page in your math notebook. The student will solve problems that involve the multiplication of fractions that include denominators of 12 or less and express answers in simplest form. Multiplying fractions. Find 3/4 times 2/5. Draw a picture. So you can see to the right they've drawn a grid, and they use the denominators to determine the number of squares. So they have 5 rows for the second fraction and 4 columns representing the first fraction. Then we're going to shade in. So they shaded in 2 of the 5 rows. So that's the first 2 rows shaded in there. Then they shaded in 3 of the 4 columns. And that's our 3/4. There are 20 squares overall in the picture, but 6 squares have overlapping shading. Those are the 6 darker ones. So 3/4 times 2/5 equals 6/20, which simplifies down to 3/10. Multiply the numerators and the denominators. Simplify if possible. So they did 3 times 2, so they multiplied the numerators, then 4 times 5 to get the denominators. So we got 6/20, and then it gives us 3/10 when we simplify. The third way to do this is to simplify first. Divide by a numerator and a denominator by their greatest common factor. So this is the cross-simplifying that we were talking about before. So 3 and 5 can't simplify at all because they don't share any common factors, but 2 and 4 can both be divided by 2. So they divided 2 by 2 and 4 by 2. So then we end up with 3/2 times 1/5, and we get 3/10 when we multiply across. So they did the simplifying first rather than at the end. Either method works, and either method is acceptable for you to use when we're doing our problems. For 1 through 3, we're going to draw a picture to solve, and you already have the grids there. You will need 2 different colors. You can use your pencil and another color, or 2 different colors. It's your choice. So for the first one, we have 1/3 times 4/5. So the first thing we need to do is we're going to shade in 1 of the 3 rows. Then I'm going to shade in 4 of my 5 columns. Then we look and see how many squares we have total, and we can see there are 15, so that'll be our denominator. And to get the numerator, we look at the number of squares that are shaded twice, and that's 4. So we get 4/15, which cannot be simplified. For 2, we have 3/4 times 3/9. So the first thing we're going to do is shade in 3 of our 4 columns. Next, we have 3/9, so we're going to shade in 3 of our 9 rows. Now we look, and there are 36 squares total, so that's our denominator. And there are 9 squares that are double shaded, so that's our numerator. And then we can divide both of them by 3 to simplify. For 2, we have 3/4 times 3/9. So the first thing we're going to do is shade in 3 of our 4 columns. Next, for 3/9, we're going to shade in 3 of our 9 rows. So now we have 9 squares double shaded, which will be our numerator, and there are 36 squares total, which will be our denominator. We can simplify 9/36. We can divide both by 9 to get 1/4. So 3/4 times 3/9 equals 1/4. For 3, we have 1/2 times 7/8. So we're going to shade in 1 of our 2 columns. and then 7 of our 8 rows. And as we look, we have 7 squares double shaded, so that's our numerator, and 16 squares total, so that's our denominator. For 4 and 5, it wants us to write the equation for each picture. So remember, one of our fractions always deals with the rows and the others deals with the columns. So for 4, we have 1 out of 2 rows sheeted in, so 1/2 is one of our fractions. Times, we have 1 of our 3 columns sheeted in, so that's 1/3. And then we have 1 square double sheeted out of 6, so our answer is 1/6. For 5, we have 2 of our 3 rows sheeted in, so we have 2/3. Times 3 of our 4 columns, which gets us 3/4. Then we can tell we have 6 squares double sheeted, so that's our numerator, out of 12 total. And we know that can simplify. We're going to divide the top and the bottom by 6, which gets us 1/2. All right, for 6 through 8, it wants us to find each product and simplify if possible. So we have 5/7 times 3/10. So if we look at the cross-simplifying model, 3 and 7 don't share any factors, so we can't do anything with those. But 5 and 10 do, and their greatest common factor is 5. So we're going to divide both of those by 5 to start with. And then we're going to multiply across, so 1 times 3 is 3, 7 times 2 is 14. So our answer is 3/14. For 7, we have 1/2 times 6/15. So we know we can't simplify 1 or 15, but 6 and 2 have a greatest common factor of 2, so we're going to divide the numerator and the denominator by 2 on the cross-multiplying method, or in this case, cross-simplifying. And then we just have to multiply across, so we get 1 times 3 is 3, and 1 times 15 is 15. And we know this can simplify. We're going to divide the numerator and the denominator by 3, which gets us 1/5. For 8, again, we can cross-simplify 4 and 2, so we're going to divide both of those by 2. So then we get 2 times 1 is 2, and 7 times 1 is 7, which gets us 2/7 as our answer. Continuing with our multiplying, we're going to do 9 through 11. So we have 5/6 times 3/8. And if we look at the cross-simplifying, 5 and 8 can't simplify. 3 and 6 share our greatest common factor of 3, so we're going to divide both of those by 3. Now we have 5/2 times 1/8, so 5 times 1 is 5, 2 times 8 is 16, and 5/16 cannot be simplified. For 10, we have 6/7 times 5/12. We know 5 and 7 cannot cross simplify, but 6 and 12 do share a common factor of 6. We're going to divide both 6 and 12 by 6. So now we have 1/7 times 5/2. So 1 times 5 is 5, and 7 times 2 is 14. Gets us 5/14, which cannot be simplified. Finally, for 11, we have a whole number, which we know all we have to do is put it over 1 to make it an improper fraction. And then we can look at the cross simplifying. 3 and 1 don't share any common factors. 8 and 4 have a greatest common factor of 4, so we're going to divide both of those by 4. So 2 times 3 is 6, 1 times 1 is 1, 6 over 1 simplifies to 6. And the reason this one is a whole number instead of a fraction like the others is we multiplied a whole number by a fraction rather than a fraction by a fraction. For 12, number sense, can you simplify before multiplying 14 times 4/7? So the first thing we know we have to do is put 14 over a 1 to make it an improper fraction. And the answer is yes, we can simplify before multiplying because 14 and 7 share a greatest common factor of 7. And to finish out the problem here, if we do the division, we're going to end up with 2 over 1 times 4 over 1. So then 2 times 4 is 8, 1 times 1 is 1, so we get 8 over 1, which equals 8. Please make sure you've copied down all of the work and glue this paper into your math notebook.